Hi everyone, this is my 2011 Vespa LX 50. I've been converting it to electric, which is covered in some other videos, but the problem I want to focus on in this video was the seat. So like a lot of Vespas of this era, it had two problems. One, the seat cover was pretty disgusting and ripped, but the seat hinge was also completely rusted. So if you Google for Vespa rusty seat hinge, you'll find a lot of images of people with rusty hinges, like this one on the Modern Vespa site. But basically, especially because these tend to be slightly cheaper models, they tend to be left out in the rain, and the water eventually penetrates the seat cover, and it just soaks into the seat cushion and just rusts the heck out of these things. When you have one of these issues, basically it won't function as a hinge anymore, and when you unlock the seat and go to swing it up, it'll just come right off, which is not ideal. You can't buy these parts. The only thing you can do if you want to buy something new is to buy a whole new seat. So the preferred solution is to modify a store-bought hinge and attach it to the existing hinge. And that's what I decided to do.
Usually the best way to do it is to completely remove the cover. Now, it's old enough to have a rusty hinge. That means it's probably been sitting outside for a long time, which means that probably the cover is pretty worn out and due for replacement anyway. So I wouldn't be too worried about things like it ripping further, as I did with mine. There are a couple little accessories to take out as you do this, but basically this cover is stapled to the plastic inside, right? So you gotta get a screwdriver, maybe some pliers, and remove about 50 odd staples. Once that's done, you have the padding exposed. And now this one's in pretty disgusting looking shape. When I took off the cover, it was, especially in the front, it was just soaked. This is fully dried out. When you take it out, you gotta be careful, especially around the lock area. But otherwise, carefully remove it. It just sits on there. There's no adhesive. You set that aside, then you're down to the plastic base. Now, flip that over. And the hinge is basically sitting in here. So once the cover and the padding are removed and you're down to the bare plastic, you'll find the hinge basically just sitting in here. There'll likely be a pin going right through that you'll have to remove. And then just remove it. The hinge pin might have already been completely rusted out on yours. Mine wasn't. So it just took a little bit of persuasion with a screwdriver and a hammer to knock it out. Now, inside, it's actually in okay condition. The plastic's a bit worn out here and broken here, but these bits are still intact, so that's good. You set that aside, and then you start working on the rusty hinge. Now mine's already been repaired, but I'll show you what I did to repair it. So my hinge basically usually has two tabs that the pin would go through, one on this side and one on the other. Now on the other side, my tab had completely broken off, which is why I could just remove the seat once it was unlocked. So what I did was, you can see there's a new piece that's in here. So I started with a hinge I just picked up at the local hardware store. And then after taking some measurements, I cut down with my hacksaw down here. And then I removed the hinge pin. And then further cut it down with the hacksaw. So I basically ended up with this piece here.
There's a slightly more detailed description of how I modified the hinge. So I measured roughly 70 mil and made one cut with a hacksaw. And then I hammered out the hinge pin and set it aside for later. This allowed the other part of the hinge to be removed. And then I got my hacksaw out again and did the other cut at 70 mil. And then I had to notch out a couple mil on either side to make it fit right into the plastic of the seat cover. And then I did another cut at 20 mil, and then did a little bit of work with my file to make it all fit into the existing hinge.
Drilled a couple holes through here and put two bolts through, and I put a couple of plastic washers in between just to space it out to the right position, because I wanted the holes to basically line up with here. So now that is done, I can stick it back into the seat like this. And stick the pin through there. Seat cushion. And again, I'm going to be careful around the lock here. Pops around there. Good. And then put that on. Cover I bought is here. There will be, I do need to cut a hole for the lock in here, but that's fine, as well as accessories. But the idea is that I will staple this onto here, sort of like the original, and be much better than the old ripped, slightly moldy and mildewed cover. So the seat has now been reupholstered. The cover I got was relatively inexpensive. If you are going to do this yourself, I highly recommend getting an electric staple gun. Mechanical ones just don't have enough force. And you can see there's lots of staples around here. The cover I got fit pretty well. I had to stretch it quite a bit to get it over, but it worked. I ended up taking the lock cylinder out and then put it back in. But overall, I'm very pleased with the results. And this is a relatively small investment. I think it's about 35 pounds for the cover. So all you need is the electric staple gun, and you should be able to do it yourself and make a huge difference to the look of your bike.
So that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. It's really not that difficult to do this job, and I think it makes a huge difference in how it looks. And be sure to check out my other videos on the Random Chats channel, and be sure to like and subscribe.